What's the most you've seen someone be so out of touch with reality? I work at a recording studio. The amount of people who think they're going to be the next big thing is scary. We are gonna get you so famous when we hit it big. I also record, and I hear this statement being uttered too much as well. I have a rule: if your business plan hinges on going viral, you are paying up front. My brother's best friend married a pretty rich girl. He said the first time he saw her do laundry, she was going through her pockets and throwing her loose change in the garbage. She had no idea that people kept their change. Genuinely thought everyone just threw it away. I clean houses, and the teenage girl in one of them throws away any bill that has a rip in it. It's not a regular occurrence, but when it does happen and I see them, they come home with me. Got a good one. I went to college for a year and lived in the dorms. One of the super rich Chinese kids that populated my college lived on the same floor as me. Her first day there, she took a shower in the public bathroom and then just left all her clothes strewn about. She assumed the maid would come pick them up and wash them. Chinese students at my small state university in the Midwest tended to all buy really nice bicycles to get around, since a lot of them didn't know how to drive. At the end of the semester they would just abandon their bikes. Eventually we discovered you could grab all of the obviously abandoned bikes and then sell them, so the university didn't just toss them. Good beer money for those of us who stayed on campus over the summer. This question is perfect for me. I grew up in the richest and whitest of suburbia. Everyone I knew had a doctor or lawyer or chief executive officer for a dad, it felt like. Where do I even start? I knew a girl who didn't want to go to school in the 8th grade. So her parents paid her $400 a week just to show up to middle school. She's now addicted to pills and not going to college. One time I was at a friend's lake house and they asked if they could come to mine next weekend. When I told them I didn't have one, they were actually floored. Everyone has one of those, right? Similar thing happened a few times with country clubs. This one is the best. I went to France on a school trip with another school from my area. I saw one of the girls from the other school who I had made friends with over the course of the trip crying. I went and asked her what was wrong, and she said she found out her maid got deported back to Bolivia. I was like, that sucks. Was she really cool or something? Nope. The girl was just pissed she'd have to clean for herself until they got a new one. Then come to find out that wasn't even their only maid. They were going from 2 maids to 1 for like a week or 2, and it was the worst thing that had ever happened to her. Some years ago, I worked in a mailroom. The boss of my boss was talking about one of her family members, who had some kind of emergency, and had to come up with $30,000. She said to my boss and I'll never forget this, I don't understand the problem. I mean, who doesn't have $30,000 saved for an emergency? I work in a mailroom. Epilogue. I have been out of the mailroom for 8 years. I still don't have an extra $30,000 lying around. I remember seeing an article recently that said most Americans couldn't even afford a $1,000 emergency. Fuck 30 grand, most people can't come up with 1 grand. We were at a table, 6 of us, eating. The conversation turned to jobs. One of the guys, a rich kid that had most of his life handed to him, including his tech job at mommy's company, made the comment that he didn't understand why if someone couldn't find a job, they just didn't go back to school, get a degree, and try some more. He couldn't understand 2 things. 1. Most families cannot support an unemployed adult student for the time it takes to get a degree. 2. The jaw-dropping one was he thought that all colleges, everywhere, were free. His logic was that students go to college straight from high school and they don't have money, so how else could they afford school? We live in the US, and this guy was 27 years old, and we had to tell him school costs money. Do kids count? 'Cause when I was a kid I was on the swim team at an athletic club in a primarily rich area, with us being middle class. The athletic club had a grill and I saw people all day going up and getting food just by showing their access card. I asked them what they did and they said, just scan your access card and you get food. Of course, in my mind that meant it was complimentary. So I started getting all sorts of food and snacks, frozen yogurt, Slurpees, chicken fingers, cheese fries, smoothies, etc. Come the end of the month my parents get our membership bill and start freaking out. I didn't hear the beginning of the conversation and walk in just in time for them to wonder where all these food charges came from. I, in my naivety, said, I got all that food but it's free, right? They told me it all had to be paid for. When I asked the other kids, they all said, "No, it's free, I never have to pay." Turns out their parents were just so loaded they didn't care what the bill was, it just got paid and they ate whatever they wanted, however much. It was around that time I realized just how out of class I was compared to them. The trick was to just let them buy food for you. "Hey Chad, I forgot my card. Can you swipe for this lobster bisque and champagne? Thanks." My boss' daughter has 4 or 5 warnings from the police for drunk driving, so they took her license away and installed the Uber app on her phone. She tells people she has a personal driver. Knew a guy who was really into Rage Against the Machine and getting pretty radicalized about government. One day thought he was being tailed by the FBI, so he threw it in reverse and rammed the car. Turns out it was the FBI. He was on a watch list, and now he's in prison. That dude sounds super in touch with reality. He figured out the FBI was following him. I don't think even 1 in 100,000 people are that observant. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not after you. I had to give my friend the sex talk. Junior year of high school. Before that, he thought you took your wife to the hospital, they'd put you in a room, you peed on her, and the baby would be conceived. Sweet Jesus. "My house isn't that big, I only have 6 bedrooms, one of my classmates. A friend of mine said he was disappointed that he couldn't find an affordable house that had just a couple acres and a pool. Well, yeah. Your parents' house isn't an affordable house. It's a mansion. I had to deal with a similar attitude from my wife when we were looking for our first house. At every house in our price range. But I don't want this. I want something nicer. My parents only spent $183K on their house. Yeah, and they bought that shit in like 1994. Went on a trip with an ex to Asia. She didn't like it because she couldn't understand why people didn't speak English. So she would just yell at them, "I need a napkin. Bathroom where?" I pretty much told her to have some respect for people. Talk to them politely. She got all mad and fussy at me the whole trip. This is actually advice I give people. Go on an extended vacation with someone before you marry them. Foreign countries are especially effective. There are few situations which will be more revealing of personal character and the strength of your interpersonal dynamics. I have a coworker who once got visibly upset because I said he was about the same age as my parents. He's 51. My parents are 53. I'd like to point out that I didn't just say this out of the blue. He asked how old my parents were, and I knew his age, so I made the comparison. He also said things like, "I work out, you know, I'm stronger than guys half my age," very much a man-child in denial. I used to work in a pizza place and my boss, the owner, was one of the strangest guys I've ever met. He used to tell me that the world was run by reptilian aliens, and that the moon was their base. He knew this because NASA once hit something off the moon and it sounded like a bell, and thus must be hollow and full of lizard people. Left that job after 3 weeks. Do you have a similar story? Leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this one.